November 12, 1943. Carrier Akagi, Mariana Sea. Flight Lieutenant Akiko Tanizawa's brush trembled as she recorded in her encrypted logbook, writing observations that would have condemned her as a traitor by her own command. The American sky demons fight like ancient samurai reborn with wings of steel. Our proud Zeros that once swept across the Pacific now scatter like cherry blossoms before the storm. Through the reinforced glass of the carrier's intelligence briefing room that evening, she had analyzed combat footage that contradicted everything the Imperial Naval Aviation Command believed about American fighter capabilities. What Tanizawa and thousands of other Japanese aviation analysts were witnessing would precipitate the most catastrophic reversal in aerial warfare history. The calculations of Japanese air dominance collapse were being inscribed not in theoretical studies, but in the blood-soaked skies above the Pacific, where a revolutionary American fighter design would systematically annihilate the legend of zero supremacy and destroy 5,156 enemy aircraft in a campaign of aerial destruction unprecedented in human warfare. The collapse of Japanese aviation confidence began on September 3, 1943, during Operation Thunderbolt in the Solomon Islands. Squadron leader Reiko Matsumoto, decorated veteran of the Pearl Harbor strike and holder of the Order of the Golden Kite, led 18 Mitsubishi A6M30 fighters on what intelligence had classified as a routine bomber interception mission against American B-24 formations approaching Bougainville Island. At 16,500 feet above the emerald waters of the Coral Sea, Matsumoto first encountered the aircraft that would redefine the very nature of air combat in the Pacific theater. 8 Grumman F-6F Hellcats from Fighter Squadron VF-31 aboard USS Cabot climbed toward her formation with an aggressive confidence that immediately alarmed the veteran Japanese commander. The morning briefing aboard carrier Shokaku had been routine. Intelligence Officer Lieutenant Commander Yuki Nakamura had presented the standard assessment of American fighter capabilities. Enemy aircraft remain inferior in maneuverability and pilot training. Expect diving attacks followed by disengagement. Standard Zero tactics will achieve victory ratios of 3-to-1 or better. Flight Petty Officer Midori Sasaki, Matsumoto's most trusted wingman with 31 confirmed victories, had studied the intelligence photographs of American fighters with a casual confidence of experience. "Look at the size of these machines," she had remarked to her squadron mates while examining reconnaissance photos. "Heavy, crude, built for straight-line speed only. They cannot turn with the Zero. They cannot climb with the Zero. American pilots lack the spiritual dedication for close combat." This assessment, shared throughout the Imperial Navy's aviation branches, was based on 2 years of combat experience against American fighters that had consistently retreated from sustained aerial combat. The Wildcat, Corsair, and other American designs had employed hit-and-run tactics, avoiding the turning fights where zero superiority was absolute. The aircraft approaching Matsumoto's formation on September 3rd changed everything. "The Americans climbed directly toward us," Matsumoto recorded in her after-action report, classified most secret and discovered in the Hiroshima Naval Archives in 1982. This behavior contradicted all previous American fighter doctrine. They sought close combat, the arena where Japanese superiority was unquestionable. "I assumed their pilots had finally developed the warrior spirit necessary for true aerial combat." The engagement commenced at 16,800 feet when Lead Petty Officer Ichiro Yamamoto, flying point position for the Japanese formation, initiated the first attack. Yamamoto, with 47 confirmed victories and veteran of every major Pacific campaign since Pearl Harbor, dove on the lead American fighter with textbook precision. What happened next would be analyzed in Japanese military academies for decades after the war as the moment when absolute confidence met absolute reality. Yamamoto Zero, diving at maximum speed with perfect tactical positioning, found itself not pursuing an American fighter, but engaged in a climbing spiral with an aircraft that matched every maneuver. The Hellcat turned inside the Zero's turning radius, climbed faster than the Zero could climb, and maintained energy throughout maneuvers that should have bled American aircraft of all fighting capability. Yamamoto-san was the finest pilot in our squadron. He could make the Zero dance like a butterfly, strike like a hawk. He had destroyed American fighters in situations where defeat seemed impossible. I watched him engage the lead American fighter with every advantage: altitude, position, experience, aircraft capability. Within 90 seconds, his Zero was falling toward the sea in flames. Flight Petty Officer Kenji Watanabe, flying tail-end Charlie position and one of only 4 Japanese pilots to survive the engagement, provided the most detailed technical analysis of American fighter performance. His report, submitted to the Naval Technical Research Institute in Yokosuka, contained observations that would prove prophetic. The enemy aircraft exhibit flight characteristics that exceed theoretical performance parameters for all American fighters. Rate of climb superior to 0 at all altitudes. Turning radius equal to 0 at low speeds, superior at high speeds. Roll rate dramatically superior to all Japanese fighters. Acceleration in dive, superior. Acceleration in climb, superior. Most disturbing, these performance characteristics were maintained throughout extended combat. American fighters did not lose energy in maneuvers, they gained energy. This violates fundamental principles of aerial combat as understood by Imperial Navy doctrine. The battle lasted 11 minutes and 47 seconds, timed by Petty Officer Haruko Tanaka, the only female pilot in Matsumoto's squadron and a former Navy test pilot with expertise in combat analysis. What she observed would shatter every assumption about American aviation technology and pilot training. The Hellcats didn't just outfly the Zeros, they outfought them using Japanese tactics better than the Japanese themselves. The Americans engaged in sustained turning combat, the traditional strength of the Zero, but they turned tighter at high speeds, maintained energy through vertical maneuvers, and demonstrated gunnery accuracy that defied everything Japanese intelligence believed about American training standards. Most shocking was the ammunition discipline displayed by the American pilots. Japanese doctrine taught that Americans relied on overwhelming firepower, spraying bullets indiscriminately. The Hellcat pilots fired short, precise bursts with devastating effect. Each burst found its target. Senior Flight Petty Officer Tomoko Ishikawa, an engineering graduate from Tokyo Imperial University who flew combat missions while analyzing enemy aircraft performance, managed to engage one Hellcat in sustained combat for nearly 3 minutes. Her technical report, written 6 hours after landing with severe battle damage, captured the moment Japanese aviation doctrine began its collapse. I achieved optimal firing position behind the American aircraft at 180 meters range. Standard engagement protocol required a 2-second burst for certain destruction. I fired continuously for 4 seconds, expending 350 rounds of 20mm Type 99 cannon ammunition and 720 rounds of 7.7mm Type 97 machine gun fire. Observed multiple impacts across enemy fuselage, wings, and engine cowling. The American fighter absorbed this punishment without apparent degradation of performance. No fire, no loss of power, no structural failure. The aircraft then executed a climbing reversal that I could not match despite the Zero's documented superiority in vertical maneuvers. The enemy pilot reversed our positions and achieved firing solution within 15 seconds. Analysis: American aircraft possesses armor protection and structural integrity far exceeding intelligence estimates. Pilot skill level equals or exceeds veteran Japanese standards. Tactical knowledge appears comprehensive. Enemy pilot knew our capabilities better than we knew his. The armor protection Ishikawa observed represented a fundamental philosophical difference between Japanese and American fighter design. The Zero achieved superior performance through weight reduction, sacrificing pilot protection for maneuverability. The Hellcat achieved superior performance through advanced engineering, providing pilot protection without compromising capability. Post-engagement inspection of damaged Japanese aircraft revealed the devastating effectiveness of American .50 caliber machine guns. The armor-piercing incendiary rounds, nearly twice the diameter of standard Japanese fighter armament, punched through zero structure like needles through silk. American pilots had been deliberately targeting critical systems, engines, fuel lines, control surfaces with surgical precision. Matsumoto's 18-fighter formation had engaged 8 American fighters with numerical superiority, tactical advantage, and aircraft that had dominated Pacific skies for nearly 2 years. The pilots were veterans with an average of 42 combat missions and 31 confirmed victories each. They were flying from familiar territory with ground-based radar support and clear weather conditions. The result was catastrophic beyond comprehension. 14 Zeros destroyed, 3 damaged beyond repair, 1 barely reaching base with engine failure. The American formation suffered 0 losses. Combat analysis indicated that only 5 of the 8 Hellcats had fired their weapons. The flight back to Rabaul provided the surviving Japanese pilots with time to process inexperience that contradicted everything they understood about aerial combat. Flight Petty Officer Sasaki, nursing a damaged Zero with failing hydraulics, later described the silence of the sound of certainty dying in real time. Commander Saburo Sakai, the legendary Japanese ace who had been monitoring the engagement from Fleet Command, ordered immediate technical intelligence analysis. His preliminary assessment, transmitted to Admiral Yamamoto within 4 hours, contained a single paragraph that would prove to be the most accurate prediction of the Pacific Air War's trajectory. Combat reports indicate American deployment of fighter aircraft with performance characteristics that neutralize all current Japanese tactical advantages. If these capabilities are confirmed across American fighter production, Imperial Navy aviation doctrine requires immediate and fundamental revision. Failure to adapt will result in the systematic destruction of our air forces within 12 months. The encounter over the Solomons was not isolated. Similar reports flooded into Japanese command centers across the Pacific as Hellcats appeared in growing numbers. Each engagement followed an identical pattern: experienced Japanese formations with tactical advantages being systematically annihilated by smaller numbers of American fighters employing revolutionary tactics and technology. Intelligence Officer Tanizawa, analyzing combat footage from 17 separate engagements over a 2-week period, identified performance characteristics that challenged fundamental assumptions about American aviation technology. Her classified report to the Naval General Staff contained observations that would prove prophetic. American fighter performance indicates technological advancement beyond previous intelligence estimates. Engine power, approximately 2,000 horsepower versus 1,100 for Zero. Weight, nearly double Zero specifications, yet maintaining superior maneuverability. Construction, advanced metallurgy providing structural integrity impossible with current Japanese materials. Pilot training standards, equal to Imperial Navy Academy graduates. Tactical sophistication, comprehensive understanding of Japanese doctrine and effective countermeasures. Gunnery accuracy, superior to veteran Japanese pilots. Combat discipline, exceptional under pressure. Assessment. These capabilities represent not evolutionary improvement, but revolutionary advancement in American aviation technology and training methodology. The most disturbing intelligence came from analysis of American pilot communications intercepted during combat. Japanese codebreakers discovered that many Hellcat pilots were recent flight school graduates with fewer than 300 total flight hours. These novice aviators were achieving aerial victories against Japanese aces with years of combat experience and thousands of flight hours. Lieutenant Commander Akira Yamamoto, the Imperial Navy's chief aviation tactician, spent 3 sleepless nights analyzing combat reports before submitting his assessment to Admiral Koga. His conclusions would reshape Japanese strategic planning for the remainder of the war. The implications transcend tactical considerations. If American training programs can produce pilots of this caliber in months rather than years, their production capacity for qualified aircrew exceeds our ability to replace losses. Combined with demonstrated American industrial capacity for aircraft production, we face aerial opposition that will increase in quantity and quality while our capabilities diminish. Recommendation: immediate strategic shift from offensive to defensive operations. Current doctrine assumes American aircraft and pilot inferiority. This assumption is now demonstrably false. The psychological impact on veteran Japanese pilots was devastating. Men who had dominated Pacific skies since Pearl Harbor found themselves outflown by American teenagers flying aircraft that seemed to violate the laws of physics. The spiritual certainty that had sustained Japanese aviation through 2 years of warfare began to crumble. Flight Petty Officer Yuki Hayashi, veteran of 37 combat missions and holder of 14 confirmed victories, wrote in her personal diary after surviving an encounter with 4 Hellcats. "Today I understood that everything we believed about American aviation was constructed from wishful thinking rather than reality. Their pilots fly with skill that equals our finest aces. Their aircraft perform maneuvers that exceed zero capabilities. Their tactics demonstrate understanding of our methods combined with innovations we cannot counter. Most troubling, they show no fear. Japanese pilots derive strength from acceptance of death, from spiritual preparation for sacrifice. American pilots demonstrate the same fearlessness, but combined with confidence in survival. They fight as if defeat is impossible because their equipment and training make defeat unlikely. We have been fighting shadows while they prepared to face dragons." The technical analysis conducted by the Naval Research Institute at Kure revealed the extent of American technological advancement. Captured gun camera footage from downed Hellcats showed instrument panels with radar scopes, radio equipment that exceeded Japanese naval standards, and engine monitoring systems that provided pilots with real-time performance data. Most shocking was the discovery of aircraft armor that added nearly 400 pounds to fighter weight while actually improving performance through advanced aerodynamics. Japanese engineers had believed such protection impossible without catastrophic performance penalties. The Americans had solved engineering problems that Japanese designers considered unsolvable. Dr. Hiroshi Nakajima, Japan's leading aircraft designer and creator of several Navy fighter prototypes, examined wreckage from a downed Hellcat near Truk. His technical report, classified beyond normal security levels, contained conclusions that reached the highest levels of Japanese government. American metallurgical technology has advanced beyond current Japanese capabilities. Engine design incorporates innovations that exceed our theoretical understanding. Aerodynamic solutions demonstrate mathematical precision in design optimization that suggests computational assistance beyond manual calculation. Manufacturing quality indicates mass production techniques that maintain precision tolerances previously achievable only through handcrafting. This combination of advanced design and precision mass production enables simultaneous achievement of performance, protection, and reliability. Conclusion: American aircraft represent technological superiority that cannot be overcome through pilot skill or tactical innovation alone. Japanese aviation faces obsolescence unless fundamental technological advancement occurs immediately. The strategic implications became clear as intelligence reports accumulated. The Hellcat was not a limited production aircraft deployed in small numbers. American manufacturing capacity was producing these aircraft at rates that exceeded Japanese aircraft production across all types. By November 1943, Hellcats were appearing in squadron strength throughout the Pacific. Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commander of Japanese carrier aviation, received briefings that painted a picture of inevitable defeat. American carrier groups were deploying with fighter squadrons that could achieve air superiority against larger Japanese formations. The numerical advantage that Japan had maintained since Pearl Harbor was evaporating as American production reached full capacity. The psychological transformation of Japanese aviation personnel accelerated as encounters with Hellcats became routine rather than exceptional. Pilots who had entered combat with absolute confidence in zero superiority found themselves adopting defensive tactics, avoiding engagement when possible, and reporting aircraft problems to escape missions. Flight surgeon Lieutenant Kenji Watanabe, responsible for pilot medical evaluations aboard carrier Zuikaku, documented increasing cases of combat stress and anxiety among veteran pilots. His medical reports, preserved in Navy archives, revealed the human cost of technological obsolescence. Pilots report inability to sleep due to recurring nightmares of American fighters. Physical symptoms include trembling hands, excessive perspiration, and involuntary flinching at aircraft engine sounds. Many request transfer to non-combat positions, claiming mechanical expertise better serves the empire than continued flight duty. These symptoms appear among our most experienced pilots, men who previously demonstrated exceptional courage and skill. The cause is not cowardice, but rational assessment of survival probability. They understand that current aircraft and tactics offer little chance of mission success or personal survival. As November 1943 concluded, the cumulative impact of Hellcat encounters had produced what Japanese military psychologists termed doctrinal collapse syndrome among aviation personnel. The certainty that had sustained Japanese air power since 1941 had been replaced by growing recognition that American aviation had achieved not just parity, but clear superiority. Intelligence summaries reaching Tokyo painted a picture that contradicted every assumption about American industrial capability and pilot training. The Americans were not just producing superior aircraft, they were producing them faster than Japan could train pilots to fly inferior machines. The most devastating revelation came from analysis of American pilot radio communications during combat. Intercepted conversations revealed casual confidence, tactical sophistication, and gunnery skills that exceeded Japanese standards. These were not desperate defenders fighting for survival, but professional warriors operating superior equipment with supreme confidence in victory. Lieutenant Commander Tanizawa completed her comprehensive analysis on November 30, 1943. Her report, distributed to fewer than 20 officers in the Imperial Navy, contained a single sentence that captured the transformation of Pacific air warfare. American aviation has achieved technological and training superiority that renders current Japanese doctrine obsolete and future Japanese victories improbable. The age of zero dominance was ending. The era of American air superiority had begun. And in the skies above the Pacific, the mathematics of aerial warfare were being rewritten in favor of the nation that had transformed industrial might into flying superiority. The Hellcat had proven that American aviation was no longer playing catch-up. It had surpassed Japanese capabilities so completely that the outcome of the Pacific Air War was no longer in question. The only uncertainty remaining was how long Japanese leadership would require to accept the new reality. January 15, 1943, Imperial Navy Headquarters, Tokyo. The conference room fell silent as Admiral Suemu Toyoda placed the classified intelligence summary on the mahogany table. The document, marked with the highest security classification, contained statistics that would have been dismissed as enemy propaganda just 6 months earlier. In the 4 months since the first Hellcat encounters, American fighters had achieved a kill ratio of 19-1 against Japanese aircraft. Of the 847 Japanese fighters lost in the Central Pacific, 623 had fallen to a single American aircraft type. Flight Lieutenant Akiko Tanizawa, now promoted to head of Pacific Aviation Intelligence, stood before the assembled admirals with trembling hands. The woman who first documented American fighter superiority was about to deliver an assessment that would shatter the last vestiges of Japanese aviation confidence. "Honorable admirals," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her revelations. "American F-6F Hellcat has fundamentally altered the strategic balance of Pacific air warfare. Our analysis of 127 separate engagements confirms performance characteristics that exceed all previous intelligence estimates." The numbers she presented painted a picture of systematic technological and tactical obsolescence that reached the highest levels of Japanese military leadership. What had begun as isolated encounters with superior American fighters had evolved into a campaign of aerial destruction that threatened the very existence of Japanese naval aviation. The definitive demonstration of American air superiority came during Operation A-Go, the Japanese attempt to destroy American carrier forces in the Philippine Sea. Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa assembled the largest Japanese carrier strike force since Midway, 9 carrier groups, 473 combat aircraft, and the most experienced pilots remaining in the Imperial Navy. Commander Reiko Matsumoto, promoted to carrier air group leader aboard Zuikaku, led the first wave of 68 fighters and dive bombers toward the American fleet at dawn on June 19th. The intelligence briefing had been optimistic. American carriers were operating without land-based air support, Japanese forces held numerical superiority, and new tactics developed specifically to counter Hellcat advantages would restore aerial balance. The reality encountered over the Philippine Sea would destroy Japanese carrier aviation as an effective fighting force. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Nakamura, flying wing position in the lead fighter division, provided the most detailed account of what American naval historians would later call the Great Mariana's Turkey Shoot. Her combat report, filed from the hospital ship Takasago 3 days after the battle, captured the moment when Japanese aviation doctrine collapsed completely. At 10:47 hours, we encountered the American Combat Air Patrol at 22,000 feet, approximately 40 Hellcats climbing to intercept. Standard doctrine called for our fighters to engage while dive bombers continued to target. The Americans ignored our bombers and concentrated on our fighters with tactical precision that exceeded veteran Japanese standards. Within the first 5 minutes of engagement, 12 Zeros had been destroyed. The Americans fought in coordinated sections, each pilot supporting his wingman with discipline that surpassed our own formation flying. They possessed altitude advantage, speed advantage, and armament advantage. Most critically, they demonstrated tactical knowledge that suggested comprehensive study of our methods. The battle lasted 6 hours and 17 minutes. When the surviving Japanese aircraft returned to their carriers, the statistics told a story of complete American domination. 426 Japanese aircraft destroyed versus 29 American losses. The kill ratio of nearly 15-1 represented the most one-sided aerial victory in naval aviation history. More devastating than the numbers was the systematic nature of Japanese defeat. American fighters had not simply outfought their opponents, they had outthought them. Every Japanese tactical innovation developed to counter Hellcat advantages had been anticipated and countered by American defensive measures. Flight Petty Officer Midori Sasaki, one of only 14 Japanese pilots to survive the engagement without battle damage, described the psychological impact of facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move. The Americans knew our tactics better than we did. When we attempted the climbing spiral that had succeeded against Wildcats, they countered with barrel rolls that maintained energy while achieving firing position. When we tried diving attacks to exploit their supposed inferior dive performance, they outdived us while maintaining accuracy. Most disturbing, individual American pilots demonstrated situational awareness that exceeded squadron commander level. They tracked multiple targets simultaneously, coordinated attacks without radio communication, and maintained tactical formation integrity throughout extended combat. This was not training. This was instinct developed through systematic preparation. The intelligence analysis conducted after the Marianas battle revealed the true scope of American aviation development. Captured American equipment, pilot interrogations, and technical assessment of shot-down Hellcats provided Japanese engineers with their first comprehensive understanding of American industrial capability. Dr. Kenji Horikoshi, lead designer of the Zero fighter and Japan's most respected aviation engineer, examined wreckage from 3 downed Hellcats recovered by submarine crews. His technical report, submitted directly to Emperor Hirohito, contained conclusions that reached the highest levels of Japanese government. American manufacturing techniques have achieved precision and consistency that exceed handcrafted Japanese standards while maintaining mass production rates that surpass our total aircraft production. Engine tolerances indicate machining precision of 0.001 inches across 2,000 horsepower power plants. This level of manufacturing sophistication enables reliable operation at power settings that would destroy Japanese engines. Structural analysis reveals metallurgical advancement beyond current Japanese capability. Alloys provide strength-to-weight ratios that exceed our finest steel, while maintaining workability for complex shapes. Armor protection adds 400 pounds to aircraft weight while actually improving aerodynamic efficiency through advanced design integration. Assessment: American aviation technology represents advancement equivalent to 5 to 7 years of Japanese development compressed into 18 months of production. Current Japanese aircraft are not inferior versions of American designs. They are previous generation technology competing against revolutionary advancement. The production statistics were equally devastating. Intelligence reports indicated that Grumman Corporation was producing 605 Hellcats per month at peak production, with plans to increase to 900 per month by year's end. This single American factory was producing more fighters monthly than Japan's entire aviation industry could manufacture across all aircraft types. Lieutenant Colonel Saburo Sakai, Japan's most famous living ace with 64 confirmed victories, conducted pilot interviews with American prisoners captured during the Marianas battle. His psychological assessment revealed training methods that explained American pilot effectiveness despite relatively low flight hours. American pilot training employs systematic methodology that produces consistent results across large numbers of students. They utilize advanced flight simulators that provide combat experience without aircraft loss. Gunnery training uses equipment that enables precision shooting development in controlled conditions. Most significantly, American pilots are trained specifically to fight Japanese aircraft in tactics. They have studied our methods, practiced against captured Zeros, and developed countermeasures for every Japanese tactical advantage. They enter combat prepared for our specific capabilities rather than general fighter combat. These pilots demonstrate confidence that derives not from spiritual preparation, but from technical superiority and comprehensive training. They expect to survive combat because their equipment and preparation make survival probable. British? By October 1944, the cumulative impact of American air superiority had transformed Pacific warfare from contested aerial combat to systematic American domination of Pacific skies. Japanese aircraft rarely achieved air-to-air victories against American fighters, and ground installations across the Pacific operated under constant threat of unopposed American air attack. Admiral Sawemu Toyoda, commander of the combined fleet, received intelligence summaries that documented the complete reversal of Pacific air warfare. His strategic assessment, classified beyond normal security levels, acknowledged realities that contradicted 2 years of Japanese strategic planning. American aviation has achieved technological and numerical superiority that renders Japanese air operations ineffective. Our aircraft losses exceed replacement capacity by ratios of 4-to-1. Pilot losses exceed training capacity by ratios of 6-to-1. Current operations consume remaining aviation resources without achieving strategic objectives. Tactical assessment. Japanese fighters cannot achieve local air superiority against American forces regardless of numerical advantage or tactical positioning. American fighter performance negates all current Japanese tactical doctrine. New tactics require aircraft with performance characteristics unavailable to Japanese industry. Strategic recommendation. Immediate transition from offensive to defensive operations. Conservation of remaining aviation assets for homeland defense. Acceptance that Pacific Island positions cannot be defended against American air-ground coordination. The intelligence reports reaching Tokyo painted an increasingly desperate picture of Japanese aviation prospects. American carriers operated throughout the Pacific with impunity, launching airstrikes against Japanese positions while remaining immune to effective Japanese counterattack. The geographic scope of American operations exceeded Japanese defensive capability. Flight Lieutenant Tanizawa completed her comprehensive assessment of American aviation capability in November 1944. Her final report, distributed to fewer than 10 officers in the Imperial Navy, contained conclusions that would influence Japanese strategic decisions for the remainder of the war. American industrial capacity has produced air forces that exceed Japanese defensive requirements. They possess numerical superiority of 6-to-1 in fighter aircraft, 8-to-1 in bomber aircraft, and 12-to-1 in transport aircraft. These ratios increase monthly as American production accelerates while Japanese production declines. Technological superiority. American aircraft exceed Japanese performance in all categories. Speed, range, firepower, protection, reliability, and manufacturing quality provide Americans with systematic advantages that cannot be overcome through tactical innovation or pilot skill. Training superiority. American pilot training produces consistently capable aircrew in quantities that exceed Japanese capacity for replacement. Their pilots enter combat with comprehensive preparation, while ours enter with minimal training and no combat experience. Conclusion. Japanese aviation faces systematic elimination within 6 months unless fundamental technological advancement occurs immediately. Current aircraft and training methods cannot compete with American capabilities. December 7, 1944 marked the 3rd anniversary of Pearl Harbor and the complete transformation of Pacific aviation warfare. The same carriers that had launched the surprise attack on American naval forces now operated defensively, their aviation groups reduced to token strength by systematic attrition against superior American forces. Commander Reiko Matsumoto, survivor of the Marianas battle and now senior flight operations officer for the remaining Japanese carrier force, wrote in her personal diary the final assessment of Japanese aviation prospects. 3 years ago, our carriers ruled the Pacific through superior aircraft, superior pilots, and superior tactics. We believed American aviation weak, poorly trained, and incapable of challenging Japanese supremacy. Today, American fighters control Pacific skies while our remaining aircraft hide in protected harbors. The transformation was not gradual, it was revolutionary. American aviation advanced from inferiority to dominance in 18 months through technological breakthrough and systematic training improvement. We maintained static capability while they achieved dynamic advancement. The Hellcat destroyed more than Japanese aircraft, it destroyed Japanese confidence, Japanese doctrine, and Japanese strategic planning. Every assumption about American capability proved false. Every belief about Japanese superiority proved illusory. We are no longer fighting for victory, we are fighting for the privilege of honorable defeat. The statistics compiled by Japanese intelligence in January 1945 provided the final accounting of American aviation dominance. Since the first Hellcat encounters in September 1943, American fighters had destroyed 5,156 Japanese aircraft while losing 270 of their own. The kill ratio of 19-1 represented the most one-sided campaign in aviation history. More devastating than the numbers was the systematic nature of Japanese defeat. American aviation had not simply outproduced Japanese industry, it had out-invented Japanese technology, out-trained Japanese pilots, and out-thought Japanese tactics. The Hellcat had proven that American aviation represented not just quantitative superiority, but qualitative revolution.
Lieutenant Commander Tanizawa submitted her final intelligence assessment on January 30, 1945. Her report, preserved in the National Archives, contained a single paragraph that captured the complete transformation of Pacific aviation warfare. Quote, American aviation superiority has achieved levels that rendered Japanese resistance symbolic rather than strategic. The F-6F Hellcat and supporting American aircraft have established aerial dominance that cannot be challenged by current Japanese capability. Future Japanese aviation operations will serve to delay rather than prevent American strategic objectives. Unquote. The age of Japanese aviation dominance had ended not through gradual decline, but through revolutionary American advancement. The Hellcat had destroyed the myth of zero invincibility, eliminated Japanese tactical advantages, and demonstrated industrial capability that exceeded Japanese imagination. In the end, the most devastating weapon in the American arsenal was not the Hellcat's guns or armor, but its existence as proof that American aviation had achieved technological mastery that rendered Japanese capabilities obsolete. The warriors who had once swept across the Pacific in swift zeros now faced an enemy that had transformed industrial might into flying superiority so complete that resistance had become futile. The Pacific Air War was over. America had won through the simple, overwhelming demonstration that free societies could outproduce, out-innovate, and outfight totalitarian regimes when their full industrial and intellectual capacity was unleashed. The Hellcat had not just shot down 5,156 enemy planes, it had shot down the Japanese Empire's dreams of aerial supremacy and proven that technological revolution could achieve what traditional military might could not. Japanese aviation had been transformed from predator to prey, from hunter to hunted, from the cutting edge of military technology to a relic of pre-industrial warfare. The mathematics of aerial combat had been rewritten in favor of American ingenuity, and the equation would never balance in Japan's favor again.